I was halfway through reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with my lawyer's name, Daniel Wright. The message was short, urgent, and terrifying. Call me immediately. It's about your son. My pen slipped from my hand, leaving an ugly black streak across the page. My heart raced, pounding like a drum. I had built Walker Industries from scratch, weathered corporate storms, government audits, and brutal competitors. But never, not once, had Daniel written the word immediately about my family. With trembling hands, I pressed call. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments what time it is where you are right now. Daniel's voice was cold, professional, and carried an edge I didn't like. Richard, listen carefully. Your son, Adam, filed a petition in court. He wants you declared mentally unfit to run Walker Industries. His words landed like a fist in my chest. What are you talking about? I demanded. He's my son. He's the heir to the company. Why would he? Daniel cut me off. He's gathered a group of shareholders. They've signed statements claiming you've lost your judgment, that grief over your late wife has made you unstable. They want the board to remove you. Hearing scheduled in 10 days. My mouth went dry. 10 days? That meant Adam had been planning this for months. I swiveled my chair toward the massive windows of my Seattle office. Rain slid down the glass in silver streaks, the skyline blurred beyond. I had spent decades watching this city grow alongside my company, shaping both like a craftsman chiseling stone. Now my own son was sharpening the knife to carve me out of it. What evidence could he possibly have? I asked. Daniel hesitated, and my chest tightened. He's presenting records of your erratic decisions. The new Employee Wellness Initiative, the Veterans Hiring Program, the funds you allocated to your late wife's literacy foundation. He's painting them as irrational, sentimental choices that endangered shareholder profits. He also has testimony, claims of you being emotional, raising your voice in meetings, ignoring technological advances. Richard, they've built a case. I shot to my feet, pacing across the office, fists clenching. That's absurd. Passion is not instability. Compassion is not incompetence. But even as I barked the words, doubt flickered inside me. I had raised my voice at the Anderson merger meeting when they tried to slash jobs. I had refused a proposal to automate customer service, knowing it would ruin the culture we built. Would shareholders see that as strength or weakness? Who's backing him? I asked, voice low and dangerous. James Porter, Evelyn Crane, and 3 others, Daniel replied. They've been promised higher dividends under Adam's leadership. He's selling them the future. Fast growth, automation, cutting overhead. It's a fantasy, but it's seductive. I pressed my palms into the desk, feeling its solid oak strength steady me. Fantasy or not, Adam knew exactly what to offer them. Daniel cleared his throat. I'll need everything from you. Financial records proving your strategies worked. Medical evaluations to demonstrate your competence. Character witnesses. We're building a defense from the ground up. I swallowed hard. Just 2 days ago, I had been preparing to announce Adam as my successor, slowly transitioning him into the role of CEO. I thought I was giving him the future he deserved. Instead, he was trying to rip it out of my hands. Do not confront him yet, Daniel warned. We need to know their entire strategy first. If you go at him blind, it could strengthen his case. His caution felt like salt in an open wound. Not confront my own son while he plotted to destroy me. But I knew Daniel was right. Still, my insides burned with betrayal, so deep it made me tremble. I hung up and sat motionless, staring at the framed photographs on my office wall. Groundbreaking ceremonies, awards, my late wife smiling at my side in countless company events, Adam as a boy standing proudly beside me in a tiny suit. All those years of sacrifice, of building a legacy I thought I was protecting for him, and this was how he repaid me. My hands shook as I packed my briefcase. Coat, keys, phone. The same ritual I had repeated for 30 years, but now it felt mechanical, meaningless. The elevator descended in silence, carrying me 50 floors down to the parking garage. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel, the betrayal circling my mind like vultures. Dinner with Adam and his family was scheduled for tonight. Our tradition, a weekly ritual where I told myself we were still close. Could I really sit across from him, smile, and pass the potatoes, knowing he'd already signed papers to brand me incompetent? My jaw clenched. Maybe I needed to see him. Maybe I needed to look into his eyes and find out what kind of man my son had become. I started the engine and pulled into the wet streets of Seattle. The headlights cut through the rain, but the truth ahead was darker than anything I had ever faced. The closer I drove toward Adam's house, the heavier the rain seemed to fall, as though Seattle itself was trying to warn me not to go. My wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour, and still I pressed forward, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. For decades, I had built Walker Industries brick by brick, sacrificing nights, vacations, even moments with my wife and child. I had told myself it was all for Adam's future, for the family's security, for the pride of knowing the Walker name would endure. Now the son I had protected wanted to strip it all away with a courtroom ambush. By the time I pulled into his driveway, my heartbeat was a hammer in my ears. The front door opened before I even knocked. Adam stood there in a crisp navy sweater, casual but calculated, his smile wide and warm, the kind of smile that used to comfort me when he was a boy. "Dad, you made it," he said, his voice carrying the practiced ease of a man who knew how to play both sides of a coin. He hugged me tightly, and for a brief second, I almost believed it was genuine. Almost. "Come inside, you'll catch a cold out there." The warmth of the house struck me immediately. Roasted chicken in the oven, faint scent of rosemary, the sounds of his wife, Jessica, clattering dishes in the kitchen. Their daughter, little Emily, rushed toward me in a blur of curls and paint-stained overalls. "Grandpa!" she shouted, and I scooped her into my arms, grateful for the one soul in this house who still saw me as something pure. "You drew me another picture?" I asked, my voice thick. She nodded eagerly and pulled a crumpled sheet from her pocket. Stick figures, her, me, and Adam, standing in front of a tall building marked with shaky block letters, WI, for Walker Industries. My throat tightened. Out of the mouths of babes. Jessica entered, wiping her hands on a towel. Her smile was too polished, her eyes too nervous. "Richard, good to see you," she said, hugging me a moment longer than necessary, as though testing my mood. "Wine? Something stronger?" I nodded. "Wine's fine." I watched Adam move through the kitchen, efficient and calm, like a man who controlled the boardroom and his household with the same invisible strings. Every gesture felt rehearsed, every word too deliberate. He asked about traffic, about whether I had eaten lunch, about the latest football game. Not one mention of the lawsuit he had filed against his own father. I studied his face, searching for cracks in the mask, but found none. He had always been good at hiding his intentions, even as a boy. I remembered him sneaking cookies from a jar and swearing it wasn't him, those same steady eyes denying the truth without flinching. Some things never changed. At dinner, the table was set as though for a holiday. Candles flickered softly, casting long shadows across polished wood. Emily chattered about her school project, Jessica asked polite questions about my health, and Adam carved the chicken with the same precision he brought to quarterly reports. I forced myself to smile, to laugh in the right places, but inside, I was a storm of anger and confusion. The betrayal gnawed at me. How could he do this? How could he look me in the eye and play family man while sharpening the knife behind my back? At one point, Adam looked up, catching my gaze across the table. "Dad, you look tired," he said, his tone careful, probing. "Maybe you should think about slowing down. You've been carrying this company on your shoulders for a long time. Sometimes it's okay to let go." The words dripped with meaning, disguised as concern but cutting like blades. My grip tightened on my wine glass. "Work keeps me sharp," I replied evenly. "I've never felt more capable." His eyes narrowed slightly before he smiled again, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. After dinner, Emily climbed onto my lap, begging me to tell the story of how I started Walker Industries. I began, my voice steady, recounting how I borrowed money against my house, how her grandmother had stood by my side through the sleepless nights. As I spoke, I watched Adam. His jaw clenched once, almost imperceptibly, when I mentioned his mother's role in those early years. Jessica noticed too, glancing at him with the faintest flicker of discomfort. When it was time to leave, Adam walked me to the door. The rain had slowed, but the air was sharp and cold. "Drive safe, Dad," he said, resting a hand on my shoulder. His eyes searched mine with something unreadable. Was it guilt, calculation, or genuine care? I couldn't tell anymore. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. But inside, I felt hollow. Back in my car, I sat for 10 long minutes, staring through the windshield at the quiet suburban street. The image of Emily's drawing burned in my mind, the company, the family united. She thought we were still one team. She had no idea her father was preparing to destroy her grandfather in court. My chest ached with something heavier than anger, sorrow. By the time I arrived home, the city lights reflected off the wet pavement like scattered stars. I climbed to my study, the walls lined with decades of framed milestones. Awards, contracts, family photographs, proof of a life built from nothing into something enduring. I pulled out the locked drawer of my desk and removed the folder labeled Adam, Personal. Inside were report cards, old photos, letters he had written from summer camp, drawings from when he was Emily's age. I studied them under the lamplight, searching for the boy I once knew, the boy who used to wait by the window for me to come home, who used to hug me with the same small arms his daughter now used. Somewhere along the way, pride had curdled into resentment, love into rivalry. My computer chimed. An email from Daniel. Attached, Adam's official filing, 42 pages of accusations and evidence. I opened it, scrolling through the clinical language that dissected my entire career. Words like declining judgment, emotional volatility, outdated strategies. They had even cited my refusal to cut long-serving employees as proof of irrational sentimentality. And then I saw it, a line stating that my grief over my wife's death had impaired my ability to function, using her memory against me. My late wife, his mother, turned into ammunition in a legal war. I poured myself a scotch, hands trembling as I read on. The petition included testimonies from board members claiming I was prone to emotional outbursts. Financial analysts painting my wellness programs as reckless expenditures. Even medical speculation suggesting early cognitive decline. It was a full-scale character assassination, carefully wrapped in the language of concern. My son's signature was on every page. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under my weight, and stared at the ceiling. Rage surged in me like fire, but beneath it was something colder. Strategy. He thought he could outmaneuver me. He thought age had dulled my instincts. He forgot who had taught him how to fight in the first place. I set down my glass, opened a new document, and began typing names of allies, witnesses, and strategies. If Adam wanted a war, he would get one. But he was about to learn that I hadn't built Walker Industries by surrendering. I built it by outthinking every enemy who ever tried to take it from me. The morning sun was a pale smear over Seattle, barely cutting through the clouds, when I carried a heavy briefcase into Daniel's office. His law firm sat on the 20th floor of Columbia Tower, all mahogany panels and leather chairs designed to project authority. The receptionist gave me a polite smile, but her eyes flicked to the case in my hand as though she could feel the gravity of what I carried. Daniel appeared from his office doorway, crisp suit, steel gray tie, his expression taut with urgency. "Richard, come in. We have work to do." Inside, his conference room had been transformed into a war room. One wall was covered with Adam's lawsuit, 42 pages pinned like evidence in a murder trial. The opposite wall was reserved for our counter-strategy, still mostly blank. Between them stretched an empty table, waiting for the battle plans. I set down my briefcase and opened it with deliberate care. Inside were documents, financial statements, letters from employees, old contracts, even photographs. Relics of 3 decades of leadership that I was about to turn into weapons. Daniel sat across from me, his eyes sharp. "Adam thinks this will be easy. He's underestimated you. That's good." He slid a folder toward me. "But his lawyer, Laura Bennett, is ruthless. She specializes in family business disputes. She's won 37 out of 40 cases. She knows how to turn passion into incompetence in front of a judge." He opened another folder, thick with notes. "She's already lined up testimonies claiming you're emotionally unstable. Shareholders like Porter and Crane will swear you shouted in meetings. She'll twist your compassion into weakness. She'll paint every program you started, the wellness fund, the veteran hires, your wife's literacy foundation, as signs of irrational sentiment." I leaned back in my chair, my chest tightening. "Compassion is not incompetence," I said slowly. "But will the courts see it that way?" Daniel gave a small, grim smile. "That's why we make them see it. I've already scheduled comprehensive medical evaluations. Cognitive tests, psychological assessments, full physical workup. 3 independent doctors. We'll prove you're sharper than most men half your age." He tapped the table. "But that's only half the battle. We need to flip the narrative. Adam promised shareholders explosive growth, automation, massive cost cuts, AI integration. It's seductive but dangerous. If we expose it as fantasy, his credibility crumbles." The door opened and Steve Carter walked in. My oldest friend, co-founder of Walker Industries, a man who had been with me through every storm. His blue eyes held both anger and disappointment. "I heard," he said simply. "I still can't believe Adam did this." He dropped his own briefcase on the table and opened it. But if he wants a war, he's going to get one. He spread out charts, competitive analysis, shareholder reports, memos Adam had circulated. "Look at this." Adam promised Porter a 15% dividend increase. Promised Evelyn Crane a restructuring plan that would save $30 million annually. Promised other shareholders that automation would double profits within 2 years. Steve jabbed a finger at the projections. It's all smoke. If he cuts staff and forces automation, service will collapse. Long term, it'll kill the company. Daniel's eyes lit up. That's the angle. We show the shareholders that Adam's vision isn't modernization, it's vandalism. He's selling them a quick high that will destroy everything you've built. He turned to me. "We need evidence, case studies of companies that chased the same promises and imploded." Steve pulled another folder from his case. "Already done. TechFlow Industries. They automated everything. Stock tripled for 2 years, then collapsed. Employees fled, customers revolted. They're worth 20% of their peak now." I stood, pacing the room, the fire in my chest building. We use their own greed against them. They're scared of missing the next big wave. We remind them of what happens when you surf blindly into a tsunami. Daniel nodded. "Exactly. But there's more." He slid another sheet across the table. "We uncovered irregularities in Adam's campaign. He's been promising employees salary increases that are mathematically impossible. 20% raises across engineering, 30% for department heads, additional stock options. All based on savings from automation that doesn't exist." I froze, staring at the page. He's lying to the employees. Daniel's mouth tightened. "Yes. And if we can prove it, we don't just destroy his credibility, we can accuse him of breach of fiduciary duty. That's fraud." The word hung in the room like a gunshot. Fraud. My son. My own blood. Steve rubbed his temple, sighing heavily. "It gets worse. I've been monitoring internal communications. Some of Adam's private meetings with his lawyer were recorded by building security. There's audio suggesting Laura coached his testimony, told him what phrases to use, how to frame your compassion as instability. That's witness tampering." For a moment, the room went silent. I felt my jaw clench, my pulse pounding. They weren't just attacking me, they were scripting a play to destroy me. My son, manipulated by a lawyer who turned courtrooms into theater. Daniel leaned forward. "If we handle this right, Richard, we can flip everything. We can turn Adam's greatest weapons into his downfall. But we have to be strategic. We can't look like we're attacking your son out of vengeance. We have to look like we're defending the company, protecting employees, preserving legacy." I lowered myself back into the chair, the weight of decades pressing on me. My son wanted to burn down the house I had built. And maybe, just maybe, I would have to be the one to show the world the match in his hand. "Do it," I said finally, my voice cold, steady. "Build the case. Find every document, every witness, every piece of proof. If Adam wants to play with fire, let him. But I won't let him burn everything we built together." The rest of the day blurred into meetings, strategy sessions, and document reviews. By the time I left Daniel's office, Seattle was drenched in sleet, the city gray and merciless. I drove past Walker Tower, the glass skyscraper that bore my name, its lights glowing against the storm. For 30 years, it had been a beacon of everything I stood for: hard work, loyalty, vision. Now it was a battlefield. And my son stood on the other side of the field, ready to tear me down brick by brick. As I pulled into my driveway that night, I felt the exhaustion of battle before it even began. But beneath the fatigue was something sharper: resolve. Adam had forgotten one thing. I had spent my entire life outthinking men who wanted to take what was mine. He may have my blood, but I had the experience. I had the scars. And I was about to remind him exactly who taught him how to fight. The courthouse steps were slick with morning rain when I arrived, briefcase in hand, Daniel and Steve at my side. Reporters clustered near the entrance, microphones extended like spears, shouting questions about betrayal and legacy. I ignored them, climbing the marble stairs slowly, each step deliberate, like a general walking into battle. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Shareholders filled the gallery, journalists lined the benches, curious lawyers whispered in corners. At the front sat my son. Adam wore a navy suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression a mask of controlled confidence. Beside him, Laura Bennett, sharp as a knife in her tailor jacket, the woman who had built her career on turning children against parents. She met my eyes across the room and smiled, predatory, certain of victory. The judge, a silver-haired man with a reputation for no-nonsense proceedings, called the court to order. Laura rose first, her voice a blend of honey and steel. Your Honor, this case concerns a man who can no longer distinguish emotion from logic, whose outdated leadership endangers the company his shareholders depend on. His grief has clouded his judgment, his stubbornness has stalled innovation. The plaintiff, Adam Walker, seeks temporary guardianship of Walker Industries to protect the company from its own founder. She paced the courtroom as she spoke, every gesture rehearsed, every word dripping with conviction. Charts appeared on the screen behind her, growth projections, transcripts of meetings, carefully curated evidence. The narrative was simple. I was a relic, a fading patriarch clinging to power while the future slipped away. Then Adam took the stand. My son, my flesh and blood, sworn in under oath to destroy me. His voice was steady, professional, and devastating. My father has become increasingly emotional in his decision-making. He refuses to embrace modernization, rejects automation, dismisses artificial intelligence. His choices cost us millions in potential revenue. The Employee Wellness Initiative was sentimental, not strategic. The Veterans Hiring Program, while noble, undermined efficiency. He prioritizes loyalty over profit, and in doing so, jeopardizes everything this company has built. Every word was like a blade. He had memorized his script well, coached to perfection. I watched him, searching for a flicker of doubt, a shadow of regret, but found only determination. Daniel's cross-examination was precise. Mr. Walker, what was the company's profit margin last quarter? 12%, Adam admitted. And the quarter before? 11.7%. So under your father's leadership, profits are rising. Correct. Adam hesitated. Short-term, yes, but an employee retention? 94% annually. Industry average. Adam's jaw tightened. 67. Daniel pressed forward. So your father's supposedly unstable leadership produces rising profits and record-high retention. That's exceptional, not incompetent. Laura objected, but the damage was done. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The hearing stretched into days. Shareholders testified, some swayed by Adam's promises of explosive growth, others torn by loyalty to me. Evelyn Crane argued that the future demanded bold modernization. James Porter echoed her, though his voice lacked conviction. Yet others, employees, longtime managers, testified to my vision, my steadiness, my refusal to sacrifice people for numbers. The battle was brutal, each side striking, parrying, countering. Then Daniel made his move. He stood, voice calm but carrying weight. Your Honor, new evidence has come to light. He projected documents onto the screen, bank records showing unauthorized transfers totaling nearly $1 million. The plaintiff used corporate funds to finance his takeover campaign, without board approval, without documentation. This is embezzlement. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Adam's face drained of color, his confident mask cracking. Laura shot to her feet, objecting, but the judge silenced her with a raised hand. Daniel wasn't done. Additionally, we have recordings from internal security systems. These recordings capture Attorney Bennett coaching the plaintiff, scripting his testimony, instructing him on how to present compassion as instability. This is witness tampering. The room exploded with whispers. Reporters scribbled furiously. The judge's face hardened. Submit those recordings immediately. Laura paled, her reputation crumbling in real time. Adam looked down at his hands, unable to meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw the boy beneath the man, the boy who had once looked up to me, now caught in a trap of his own making. When it was my turn to testify, I stood with a steadiness that surprised even me. I founded Walker Industries in 1992 with $50,000 borrowed against my house. Today, our annual revenue is $200 million, with a net profit of nearly $30 million. I know every department, every employee, every decision. I've never been declared incompetent by any doctor. I underwent comprehensive evaluations last month, cognitive tests, psychological exams, full physical. All results normal for my age. Daniel displayed the medical reports. Clean bills of health, undeniable proof. I looked directly at the judge. My son believes compassion is weakness. He believes loyalty is a liability. But I built this company on compassion, on loyalty, on people. That's why we've thrived for 3 decades. Profit without humanity is not leadership. It's destruction. Laura's cross-examination was desperate. Isn't it true, Mr. Walker, that you resisted modernization? I resisted reckless change, I answered. Technology serves business goals, not the other way around. And isn't it true you become emotional in meetings? Passion is not instability. Conviction is not weakness. If defending jobs and honoring my wife's memory is called emotional, then I stand guilty. Murmurs of approval rose from the gallery. For the first time, Laura looked rattled. When the judge called for closing arguments, Laura's words fell flat. Her once razor-sharp tone now sounded hollow, her confidence eroded by the weight of evidence. Daniel's final words cut like a blade. This is not about modernization. This is about betrayal. A son who lied to shareholders, who misused company funds, who tried to weaponize grief and compassion against his own father. Walker Industries deserves better than a hostile takeover built on lies. The silence that followed was absolute. The judge's decision came swiftly. The court finds no grounds to declare Richard Walker incompetent. The case is dismissed. Furthermore, given the evidence of financial misconduct and possible witness tampering, the plaintiff's actions are referred for further review. His gavel struck, and the sound echoed like thunder. I exhaled slowly, relief flooding me, but it was cold, hollow. Across the aisle, Adam sat frozen, shoulders slumped, his world collapsing. Reporters swarmed, shareholders whispered, Laura gathered her papers with mechanical precision, her career in shreds. Steve squeezed my shoulder. "You won," he said softly. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like ashes. As the courtroom emptied, Adam finally looked at me. For a fleeting moment, I saw not my rival, not my betrayer, but my son, the boy who once waited by the window for me to come home. His lips parted, as if to speak, but no words came. Jessica took his arm, guiding him out, her face pale and tight. Emily wasn't there. Thank God for that. Later that night, I sat alone in my study, the rain tapping against the windows, the city lights reflecting off the glass. The company was mine, my reputation intact, my enemies silenced. And yet, my heart ached with a wound no victory could heal. Legacy had been preserved, but family had been shattered. I stared at the photograph of my late wife on my desk. She had always warned me, success without love is just an empty tower. The phone buzzed. A text from Adam. For words, I never meant this. I stared at the screen, torn between fury and forgiveness. Perhaps one day we would rebuild. Perhaps not. For now, all I had was the company, the city, and the silence. And so I sat in the dark, a man who had won everything and lost something far greater. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Tell me what you would have done in my place.